Welcome, friend. You find me coming to the end of this particular linocut print project, and it's been a long one, so as much as I have enjoyed the process, I'm really excited now to see how the final thing turns out. And I don't have a huge amount of carving left to do now. I just need to refine some of the details around the line work that I was carving previously, and then I have some work to do clearing out all the detail around the toads themselves in the center of the image. So I'm just taking my V-gouge tool now and opening up some of the line work. I want the flowers, the softer elements in this image to be less harsh, so there won't be hard black outlines around everything. I'm using that first layer of dark green that forms the background to this image to do some of the work for me. So you can see I'm essentially clearing out all of the detail now from inside that little lily and removing as much of the remaining detail from the yellow iris, the yellow flag irises at the top of the image. It's a great deal of fun, I'd say, working on these, using the contours of the subject to guide my tool, and it really does feel more like sculpture, really, when we get to this part of the process. But there's rather a lot to get through. And there's this little frog that I'm working on in the middle. He's quite fiddly. He's got a tiny little nose and little beady eyes. And the lacy wings on this dragonfly I need to be extremely diligent with. I'm going in with the finest V-gouge tool that I have. It's only about 1 millimeter diameter. So I need to be extremely careful with removing every single bit of detail that I can from those wings. I want them to have a translucent quality to them, and they should look beautifully light and weightless, which is quite a challenge to convey when you're working with a resistant material like this. I'm just slowing the time-lapse footage back down to real time for a little bit, just so that we can see just how long this process actually takes. I have to really hold my concentration and the tension in my hand and my wrist as I'm carving. It is quite a relaxing and meditative activity, though, I have to say. As much as I say, I am very excited to see this project finished and see how the final prints turn out, and I'm excited also thinking about the next print, the next design in this series. I will be sorry also, in a way, when it's over. It's a weird feeling when you complete a project. There's this strange melancholy that that's it. It's over. That's one thing done, but it's not the end of the relationship, because every piece of art that I create, every print that I ever make, there will be a version of it hanging up somewhere in my own home. Whoa! It's a kaiju cat! Oh, no, it's okay. It's just a normal-sized cat. He just likes to come in very close to the camera. Tolly's a professional. He's always ready for his close-up. Aren't you, Tolly? Yes. It's important to take breaks, and Tolly is very good at reminding me of this fact. Well, now that the important business has been attended to, I suppose I should just get back to my carving. I'm maybe being a little diligent here with going over some of the areas that I have carved into already, because this is going to be the outline for the image, and it's going to be a harsh, slick black outline. I just want to be absolutely certain that every edge is as sharp as it can be. It's quite a detailed image, and if I have lots of fine black lines in there, it could end up looking a bit muddy and a bit too busy. It's also time to break for some tool care. Tool care is something you will hear me banging on about quite a lot. If you've watched the previous videos in this process, you'll know this already, so I won't labour over it too much here. It's always worth just making sure your tools are as honed as they can be. And it's hard to believe, but I still have more carving to do. I'm not sure at this point how many hours I have spent on this project. I dread to think, to be honest. I probably could work it out if I just look at all the footage for these videos, of which I have used, maybe half, possibly, including the B-roll. I try not to edit too much out and to show as much in a time lapse as I can, but also want to make sure that what I do show is useful, and not everyone wants to see every tiny little tool stroke that I make. So it's striking a balance, like all things. And the pressure is on really for this part because these toads are the focal point in this image. I really want to bring out all those lovely wrinkly lumps and bumps, that gorgeous skin that toads have that manages to be both somehow dry and slimy at the same time, or at least it has the appearance of that. And that means a lot of really tiny, deft movements with the smallest tool that I have. Apologies if we're all getting seasickness in this sequence. I try not to show too much of me moving the block around when I'm doing these edits, but it is a vital part of what I do. I find it's a lot easier on my wrist if I move the block as much as possible and take the load off my wrist. I also find it gives me a bit more control, which is extremely important, vital when doing this kind of extremely detailed work. And once I get to this sort of stage in a project, the final thing does start to reveal itself in a way, especially as I'm taking out large swathes of material here around the line work. That difference in colour or in light and shade between the empty space and the line work. It's very pleasing to see how the final product is going to look. It's not a perfect representation yet, but we're starting to get that way. And I often find, certainly when looking at the work of other linocut printers, I find their blocks as fascinating as the prints themselves. They're almost like their own works of art. I think there's something in that. I might look into whether there's some way of presenting spent linocut blocks as wall art in their own right. Something to think about. Anyway, on we go. And even though I'm not expecting a huge amount of chatter or like loose sort of edges that pick up the ink within the toads themselves, I'm going to plan for some of that and use it to my advantage as much as possible. And so I'm carving with the contours of the toads themselves. I find that's pretty good practice anyway. At least for me, it feels like a more natural way of working, and it helps me to just get into that flow state and really develop a feel for the image, and to appreciate these toads and everything else that's within this composition as three-dimensional objects. Here it is. Finally, after all that carving and printing, it's time for the final thing. But as previously, before I can actually get on with printing, I need to unpack the prints that I've had just pressed underneath some heavy books for a few days after drying, and sort them into piles. So I think we all deserve a nice little bout of sensory entertainment, so I'm going to shut up for this next bit. So satisfying. Something about peeling a slightly sticky print away from crackly tissue paper that's just, so much fun. In all seriousness though, I am being quite tender with these and gentle as I go, because I don't want to damage any of them. I haven't yet had any issues with the paper sticking to the point where anything tears, but you never know. So now basically what I've done is I've laid all my prints out, and I've just chosen the worst three. These three were always going to be proofs anyway. They've got a little bit of chatter around the edges where they would interfere with where I'm going to sign them anyway. And as with previous rounds of sorting, every time I go back I pick the least favourable 3 or 4 prints. I will line them up against each other and see which are the least favourable of those. A couple of these have some uneven ink coverage, but then the other 2 have some wonky registration. So there's not much in it, they're kind of much of muchness. I'm going to opt for wonky registration, I think, over ink coverage, which just yields a slightly interesting texture, really. And so on and so forth until I work my way through to the bottom of the pile. So now these are all ready to print, starting off with the worst ones and working my way towards the better ones, with the expectation that I will improve as I go along. The first couple of prints are always duffers anyway. It's just a chance for me to practice, make sure the alignment with my block and the paper that I'm printing on is all down pat. So that's why it's important to go through that step of just sorting my prints beforehand. So I'm just using straight up lovely black ink for my outline. I want it to be very striking, and I'm not doing anything with it really except adding a little bit of this wax dryer. I want the black to be as rich and stark as possible, and these Calico Safe Wash inks have a lovely sheen to them. So I'm just working in a little bit of the wax dryer just to accelerate the drying process when these are done. It won't limit the time that I have to work with the ink really, but it will mean that I don't need to have my prints hanging up for 2 or 3 weeks whilst waiting for them to dry. So now I'm just taking my soft rubber roller and working out my ink into a nice even patch on my palette. I'm lifting the roller away as I'm working so that the roller gets a chance to pick up the ink all the way around, and then just gently applying that to the block here. If I find there are some raised areas that I want to mask off, where maybe I don't want some chatter, then I will mask them off with a little bit of masking tape. But I like some chatter around my image. I think it just reminds you of the process of making, really, and it's an effect that it makes it look handmade. It's not mechanical in any way. You can see those little black lines that are being picked up by the ridges of the material around particularly the borders of the image. That's basically what I'm referring to when I talk about chatter. So I've applied a few layers of ink, just going thinly but going over each area a few times to make sure the coverage is even. And as I say, just masking off a few areas towards the bottom of the image, primarily because this is where I need to sign date and write the additions for these prints. So I definitely just want to make sure I have enough clean space at the bottom of the image to do that. Then I just need to take my set square for this one because I'm aligning the paper with the corner of my block. So the set square is aligned to my cutting board, and then the block and the paper are aligned to the set square. I'm just going to apply some even pressure all over the area to be printed. I'm just lightly pressing with my fingers just to make sure the paper doesn't move whilst I'm first applying pressure with the stiff roller. Once the ink has started to adhere to the paper, I don't need to worry so much about it moving because the tension between the two different surfaces will hold it in place well enough at that point. But yeah, you definitely don't want your paper sliding all over the place. And now it's the moment of truth. Oh yes, I'm really happy with that. Oh, that's a relief. I was so worried, particularly if you watched the last video when I took the decision to print the toads, sorry, not the frogs. I will get a lot of hate, and rightly so, if I confuse toads and frogs. But yeah, when I decided to make those a slightly different shade of green from the background colour, I was really worried that it was just going to ruin everything. But I'm so happy with the way these have come out, particularly with the high contrast of that very shiny black. And you can see I'm just cleaning my roller as well, and my fingers, just with some baby wipes I have to the side. I find they're generally enough just to remove any stray bits of ink. But yeah, I'm really happy with how these are turning out. And even the ones at the beginning, which are just, proofs essentially, as I say, just making sure I've got the process correct. I'm still really happy with these. And now I just need to wash, rinse, repeat, until all 25 odd of these are done, I think. Might be 20, not sure. Either way, I've got my work cut out for me here. And now, through the magic of editing, all my prints are done, and I just need to hang the finished products out to dry. I have them hanging back to back, so there's no danger of the ink transferring from one to the other. And once these are all dry, they can be pressed one final time, signed and editioned, and ready to go to their new homes. And of course, I will leave a link to the listing on my website in the description. So thank you so much for watching and for spending time with me. I hope to see you again soon. Take care now. Bye bye.